I remember that night like it's etched into my bones. The night my father told me, "Grace, we just can't afford your wedding right now." His voice was calm, careful, like he'd rehearsed the line over and over until it sounded convincing. I believed him, I really did, because why wouldn't I? He was my dad, the man who used to hold my hand when I crossed the street, the one who'd tell me bedtime stories about how love conquers all. I didn't see the lie in his eyes that evening, or maybe I didn't want to. The truth, I smiled through the disappointment. I told him, "It's okay, Dad. Maybe we'll just do something small, a courthouse ceremony, maybe." My fiancé Ethan held my hand under the table, squeezing it gently, trying to comfort me. My mom looked away, pretending to sip her wine, and my brother, Daniel, just scrolled through his phone, smirking. I didn't know then that the man who claimed he couldn't spare a penny for his daughter's wedding would soon spend tens of thousands on Daniel's honeymoon. I didn't know that the family I'd spent years trying to please would so easily discard my happiness for his. That moment, that quiet "we can't afford it," would become the first fracture in everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. Soft pause, but before I tell you how I discovered the truth before everything broke, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because you'll want to hear exactly how I turned heartbreak into something far more powerful. It started 3 months before my wedding. Ethan and I had been together for 5 years. We met in college, fell in love fast, and built our lives brick by brick, saving, planning, dreaming. I wanted my dad to walk me down the aisle. I wanted my mom to cry happy tears. I wanted Daniel to tease me like a protective big brother. But money was tight, or so they said. My father's small construction business had been struggling. Mom said their savings were gone after paying off the house. I offered to contribute half the wedding cost if it would help, but Dad refused, saying, "You focus on your future, sweetheart. I'll take care of the family." So I scaled everything down. I canceled the floral designer, switched to a cheaper dress, and started doing my own decor. I remember sitting in my apartment in Wicker Park, surrounded by fake roses, gluing ribbons onto mason jars, while Ethan tried to make me laugh. "Hey," he said, holding up one jar with crooked lace, "Pinterest would be proud." I laughed, but inside it hurt. Every girl dreams of that one day, the day she feels cherished, special, seen. I told myself it didn't matter, that love mattered more than chandeliers and champagne, that family mattered most of all. Then 2 weeks later, while scrolling through Instagram late at night, I froze. Daniel's fiancée, Madison, had posted a picture. They were at O'Hare Airport boarding a first-class flight. Her caption read, "Off to Maui. Honeymoon phase starts now. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for the best wedding gift ever." My heart stopped. I read it twice, 3 times. My eyes blurred with tears. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. That was my dad. My father, who said he couldn't afford my wedding, had bought my brother a honeymoon to Hawaii. I sat there for a long time, staring at that glowing screen in the dark, listening to my own heartbeat thunder in my ears. I didn't cry at first, I couldn't. I just felt. Hollow. The next morning I called my mom. My voice trembled. "Mom, did Dad pay for Daniel's honeymoon?" She hesitated. I could hear it, that half. Second pause that told me everything. "Sweetheart, it's complicated. Your brother's been through a lot," and I cut her off. "A lot? You mean planning his luxury wedding while you told me we couldn't afford mine?" Her sigh cracked through the phone. "Grace, please don't start this again. You've always been so sensitive. Daniel's the one who stays close to home, who helps your father. You moved out, you live your own life, you're independent, you don't need our help." That was the moment my chest split open. Not because of money, but because of the truth. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was an outsider who'd grown too far, achieved too much, become too inconvenient to love. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Ethan tried to comfort me, but even he couldn't reach me then. I didn't want sympathy, I wanted honesty. I wanted to understand how a father could lie to his daughter and how a mother could excuse it. Days passed, my parents didn't call. Daniel posted more pictures, fancy dinners, ocean views, #blessed. I deleted Instagram for a week just to breathe, but pain has a way of leaking through no matter how tightly you try to seal it. Then one evening, I got a call from my dad. His voice was warm, casual. "Hey, pumpkin, just checking in." I didn't want to pick up, but I did. "Hey, Dad, So how's the wedding planning going? Everything on track? I wanted to scream, you tell me. Maybe I should ask if Daniel's planning another honeymoon. But I didn't. Instead, I said, it's fine, we're managing. There was silence on his end. Maybe he knew. Maybe guilt had finally crept in. But he didn't apologize. He never does. After that call, I made a decision quiet, steady, and absolute. If money was the language my family spoke, then I'd learn to speak it fluently. But not for revenge, not yet. At first, it was about survival, about control, about never feeling powerless again. So I worked harder than ever. I took double clients, late nights, weekend projects. My interior design business grew fast. Chicago's housing boom was insane, and soon I was designing $1,000,000 penthouses. While my parents posted pictures of Daniel's new car, a shiny BMW that Dad had helped him get, I was signing contracts that paid 6 figures. Ethan supported me through all of it. We postponed the wedding, but he never complained. He'd bring me coffee at 2 a.m. Tell me, you're building something incredible, Grace. Keep going. And I did. By the end of that year, I wasn't just financially stable, I was thriving. I'd bought a loft in downtown Chicago, rebranded my business, and landed a feature in a local magazine. My parents saw the article. Mom even commented, "So proud of you, honey," under the post. I didn't reply. I couldn't, because pride shouldn't come after betrayal. Still, part of me missed them. That's the hardest part to admit. No matter how successful I became, there was always that little girl inside me, still waiting for her dad to be proud for the right reasons. Then came the call that would change everything again, the one that would turn quiet strength into quiet revenge. It was a Tuesday morning. I was at my studio reviewing plans for a luxury hotel renovation when my mom's name flashed across my phone. I hesitated before answering. Grace, her voice was shaky. "Sweetheart, your dad and I need to talk to you. It's important." My stomach tightened. "Is everything okay?" She hesitated. "Not really. We're in a bit of a financial mess right now. Your father made some bad investments and we need. Well, we were hoping you could lend us some money. Maybe $50,000 just until we sort things out. $50,000 for a second, I couldn't even process it. The same parents who couldn't spare a dime for my wedding, who spent thousands on Daniel's luxury life, were now asking me for help. And that's when something inside me shifted for a long moment. I didn't say anything. I just stared out the window of my studio, the Chicago skyline glittering through the glass. $50,000, the same voice that once told me we can't afford your happiness, was now trembling, asking me to save theirs. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "Mom, what happened?" She hesitated. "It's your father's construction company. The economy slowed down, some clients backed out, and your brother, well, he's been out of work since the wedding. We're struggling." The words "your brother" always came with that tone, that quiet plea for understanding, as if Daniel's mistakes were a family responsibility, while mine were personal choices. I swallowed hard. "So, now you need me to fix it. Grace, please," she said softly. "You know you're the only one doing well right now. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious." I almost laughed. The irony was sharp enough to cut. They wouldn't pay for my wedding, but now they wanted me to bail them out. The same family that made me feel like I was too independent, too distant, too proud now saw me as their safety net. "Mom," I said finally, "I'll think about it." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from anger, from disbelief. For years, I'd been the one trying to earn their approval, to belong again. And now they were the ones seeking mine. That night, Ethan and I sat in our kitchen, the city lights flickering through the window. He poured me a glass of wine and listened quietly as I told him everything. "So what are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know yet." I said, "Part of me wants to help them, but part of me—" I trailed off, staring into my glass. "Part of me remembers every time they made me feel like I didn't belong. Every time they put Daniel first." Ethan reached for my hand. "You don't owe them your forgiveness, Grace, not after everything." But I couldn't just turn away. Family wasn't something you could erase, not overnight. So I told myself I'd help them, but on my own terms. I needed to see how deep the truth went first. The next day, I drove to my parents' house in the suburbs, the same one I grew up in. The air smelled of wet leaves and cold pavement. I parked outside, took a deep breath, and walked to the front door. My mom opened it, relief flooding her face. "Grace, you came." Inside, everything looked the same, the framed family photos, the worn couch, the smell of her vanilla candles. But it didn't feel like home anymore. Dad was sitting in his recliner, pretending to read the newspaper. He looked older, thinner. "Hey, pumpkin," he said softly. I forced a smile. "Hey, Dad." He gestured for me to sit. "Your mom probably told you we've had a rough patch. Things'll bounce back, but right now—" "I know." I interrupted gently. "She mentioned the number." He sighed. "I hate asking you for this, Grace. I really do. You've done so well for yourself, and I'm proud, but we're desperate." Desperate? That word echoed in my chest. Where was this desperation when my wedding fell apart? When I cried myself to sleep thinking I wasn't worth the effort? I asked calmly, "What about Daniel? Can't he help?" My mom looked uncomfortable. "He's between jobs, still," I said. "It's been over a year. Dad shifted. He's going through a tough time. He'll get back on his feet. But right now, it's on us as a family to support each other." I looked between them, my heartbeat slowing, my voice quiet. Family should have worked both ways. They didn't respond. The silence told me everything. When I left that house, something inside me settled, not anger, but clarity. I couldn't erase the pain they'd caused me, but I could control what happened next. That night, I sat down with my laptop and opened my business accounts. I had the money. I could have wired it in seconds. But instead, I drafted something else, something symbolic. Something they'd understand better than any argument or accusation. I decided to send them a check for $1, the same value they'd placed on my happiness. Along with it, I wrote a short note, "For the daughter's wedding you couldn't afford." And then I sealed the envelope and dropped it in the mailbox the next morning. I didn't tell Ethan. I didn't tell anyone. I just waited. 3 days later, my phone rang. Mom's number. I answered quietly. "Hey, Grace." Her voice cracked. "What? What is this?" "What's what?" "This check, $1. What kind of cruel joke is this?" "It's not a joke," I said calmly. "It's a reminder that was all I was worth to you when I needed you most. I thought you should know what that feels like." She was silent, then suddenly furious. "You're being spiteful after everything we've done for you." "Done for me," I whispered. "You lied to me, Mom. You paid for Daniel's honeymoon while telling me my dreams were too expensive. You made me feel like I was asking for too much just because I wanted one moment of joy. I've spent years rebuilding what you broke. Grace, we were doing our best. Then do better." I said softly, because I did. I hung up before she could answer. That night, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't even feel peace. I felt grief, the kind that sits heavy in your chest and won't move. Revenge didn't fix the hole they left. But it did remind me of my worth. Weeks passed before I heard from them again. But instead of calls, I saw something else, whispers in the family group chat, subtle guilt reaching me through cousins and aunts. And then, one quiet Sunday morning, I got a text. It was from Daniel. "Wow, guess success really changed you. Mom and Dad are devastated. Congrats on becoming cold-hearted." I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "Funny, success didn't change me. It just made it easier to see who you really are." I didn't send it. I deleted it instead because he wasn't worth it. But karma, as it turned out, didn't need my help. 2 months later, my business got featured in a national magazine. The same week, I was invited to speak at a design conference in New York. My photo was everywhere on LinkedIn, in articles, on Instagram. The caption read, "From local designer to industry leader Grace Mitchell's journey from rejection to recognition." The next morning, my mom commented again under the post, "So proud of our daughter." This time, I didn't ignore it. I replied publicly, "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without learning what not to depend on." The comment went viral. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, people cheering, sharing, saying this hit hard. And somewhere out there, I knew my parents saw it. But the story wasn't over yet, because a few weeks later, they came to me again, not with guilt, not with anger, but with desperation that went beyond pride. And this time, they didn't ask for $150 zeros, zero. They asked for $150 000. It was late afternoon when the text came. Just 2 sentences from my mother. "Grace, can we talk? It's serious, please." I sat in my office for a long time, staring at it. The city hummed outside, cars passing below, the winter sun sinking behind the skyline. My business was busier than ever, clients, contracts, interviews. But even in the middle of that success, family still had the power to stop me cold. I replied simply, "Okay, tomorrow at 6, my office." When they walked in the next evening, I almost didn't recognize them. My father's confident stride was gone. His shoulders slumped, his hands trembling slightly. My mother's eyes were red, her voice small. "Grace," she began, sitting across from my desk. "We wouldn't be here if it weren't serious." Dad cleared his throat. "We need help. A large amount this time. The business is falling apart. The bank's threatening to repossess our house. We've tried everything." "How much?" I asked, though I already knew. He hesitated. 150,000. Silence filled the room, just the ticking of the clock, steady and cruel. My mom's voice broke. "Please, Grace, we know we made mistakes, but we're family. Families help each other. Families." That word used to mean everything to me. It used to be sacred, something I'd fight for. But now it just sounded like a plea they used when they needed something. I leaned back in my chair, studying their faces. The same people who couldn't spare joy for me were now begging for survival. "Mom," I said quietly, "Dad, do you remember the day you told me you couldn't afford my wedding?" My father looked down. My mother blinked fast, tears threatening to fall. I continued, my voice calm. "You said there wasn't enough money, that things were tight. I believed you. And then 2 weeks later, Daniel and Madison flew to Maui first class, courtesy of your generosity." Dad exhaled slowly. "Grace, we already said we were sorry." "No," I said. "You didn't. You justified it. You said I didn't need your help because I was independent. You turned my success into an excuse to abandon me." My mother's lips trembled. "We were wrong. We see that now. We should have been there for you. Please, Grace, if you can just help us this once." I opened the drawer of my desk slowly. Inside was a small envelope I'd prepared hours before they arrived. I'd stayed up the previous night thinking about it, not out of spite, but out of clarity. I'd realized something powerful. Forgiveness didn't have to mean forgetting. I slid the envelope across the desk. "Here," I said, "take this instead." My mother frowned, confused. She opened it carefully, then gasped. My father leaned forward, his face draining of color. Inside wasn't a check. It was a framed photograph. The photo was from 5 years ago, my engagement dinner. I was smiling, wearing a pale blue dress, Ethan's arm around me. In the background, my parents sat together, Daniel standing beside them, all of them laughing while I looked away, caught mid-smile, unaware. And taped to the bottom of the frame was a small note in my handwriting. "This is what money can't buy back." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father looked like he'd been punched. "Grace," he whispered. "What is this supposed to mean?" I looked at them evenly. "It means you already took the one thing I would have given freely, my trust. You taught me that love with conditions isn't love at all. So no, I can't give you $150,000. I've already paid enough." Tears rolled down my mother's face. "We were trying to protect the family, to keep things balanced. We never meant—" I stood up. My voice softened, not cruel, just final. "I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but you did, and now I have to protect myself." Dad opened his mouth as if to argue, then stopped. He looked down at the photograph again. His hands shook. My mom was silent, clutching the frame like it was something sacred, something she'd lost long ago. I walked to the door and opened it gently. "I think you should go." They stood slowly. My mother hesitated, whispering, "Grace, please don't do this. We're still your parents." I met her eyes, "I know, and I'll always love you. But love doesn't mean saving people from the consequences of their choices." They left without another word. I watched from the window as they walked down the street, the same street I once dreamed they'd walk me down on my wedding day. When the door finally closed behind them, I sat back at my desk and breathed. Not relief, not triumph, something quieter. Freedom. That night, I took a walk through downtown Chicago. The wind was cold, the city alive. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of their expectations or their approval. I was just me, Grace Mitchell, a woman who learned the hardest way possible that independence isn't cold, it's survival. As I crossed the bridge over the Chicago River, my phone buzzed, a message from Ethan. Conference went great. Everyone loved your design pitch. Dinner tonight. I smiled and typed back, yes, but somewhere simple. I've had enough of expensive illusions. He sent a heart emoji. I looked out at the water, lights dancing on the surface, and whispered quietly to myself, sometimes you have to lose your family to find your peace. Weeks passed. My parents didn't call again. I heard from an aunt that they'd sold the house, downsized, and Daniel had finally gotten a job, not a good one, but something. Life went on. Then one morning, as I was heading out the door, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, just my name in my mother's handwriting. Inside was a single photograph, the same one I'd given them, the frame gone, just the picture. On the back, written in her shaky script, we can't undo what we did, but we see it now. You were the only one who kept your promises even when we didn't. We're sorry. I read it twice, then folded it gently and placed it in my drawer. I didn't cry this time. I didn't need to, because I'd already grieved for the version of my family that only existed in memory. Some stories don't end with hugs or reconciliation. Some just end with peace, quiet, steady, and earned. And as I sat there in the morning light, sipping my coffee, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I'd already won. Not because I was richer, not because they regretted it, but because I'd built a life where their choices no longer defined me. And in that silence, in that small apartment in Chicago, I smiled not out of bitterness but gratitude, because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply becoming the person they said you couldn't be. Soft pause, closing narration tone, and that's how I learned to let go. If you've ever been the forgotten one, in your family the one who loved more than they were loved back, trust me. Your peace is worth more than their apology. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like mine, because sometimes healing starts with hearing that you're not alone.